Alright, gonna do a quickish one on weak out facing sides, specifically FF8 weak out facing sides. So these are gonna be moves. We've already looked at ones where like a side is played where you don't have a recapture in a square. And what hopefully we remember from that is you're gonna take safety when you can next to it, and safety matters more than capturing it. So this is a better move than this, right? Now here, we're looking at cards where they will have the recaptures. But in general, the same kind of thing is going to apply. Playing safely is really promising. For instance, this is a very good move. And in fact, there is only one tie here. Now, it's a pretty findable tie. This seems like a pretty natural move. Now, second turn should certainly have the advantage here, right? Each player has a safe card and 2 is vulnerable. So if second turn can play a card in 5 that first turn does not have much combo play against, second turn is going to be in really good shape if they can flip with that card. Turns out the best of them is actually this card, which we've very rarely put in 5 because Squall and Cypher have combo play against it, but they're both off the board. And then first turn must find this to tie, so this is clearly very dangerous. This is also quite a nice card to put in 5, and second turn must find this to tie, which I think is an easier move to find. So that is to say, this is very strong, and whilst first turn does have a path to ties, it's going to be a tough road. Another move I wanted to look at was this one. I thought was kind of interesting, because you can't grab this way because I have the combo, and you don't have Squall to grab the other way, so this is pretty close to safe. And again, there's really only one path to tie, and again, it's grab one safety. And this is a more kind of typical path for first turn to tie, because first turn is safety and 2 targets. And safety and 2 targets when down 4-6 is usually just about enough to tie, as we've talked about. And here it is. It turns out this is the highest pressure move, and the only tie is apparently this. So again, this is tricky stuff, but there is a tie available. But if there's one tie available, this is so much pressure in practice, right? So we are seeing very good responses are either take safety or play a card that is effectively safe due to combo potential. May not technically be safe, but in practice will play as if it is safe. And what this tells us is, I think, kind of fundamentally, we're already seeing the weakness of this weak number facing out from 5. Because so much of what's going to happen is we're going to grab safety on one side of it. Their best try is to grab safety on the other. And now, because there's a weak number facing 5, we have a thing to capture. And if we can capture and go up 6-4 without giving them combo play, they're going to have to be incredibly precise to tie if there is a tie. And that's what we're going to keep seeing. So at this point, like for instance, A5, 9-5 here. This is a really promising move. It is hard for them to take because they concede this combo. Now maybe they can because they have the combo back, but maybe they can't because we have the combo back, right? And I think in this case, the answer is they can't. So A5, 9-5, and 1, really powerful because we have combo play against the capture. It's close to safe. It will not surprise you when I tell you there is one tie, that tie is here. But it should also not surprise you that there are lots of moves in 5 that are really, really close to winning here. Another move, this one. Low out facing. But if we look for a sec, we can see, oh, this card is comboed. This card is comboed either in 5 or 9. This card is comboed in 5. This card doesn't take. This is actually really hard to take. What's the only move that ties? You'll never guess it. It's here. Again, one safe card, 2 targets. Just about gets a tie here. Another good move. This one. Can they take? Feels like they can take that, actually. What line did I give? Apparently only Apparently they have to go in 3 again to tie here, so this does lose, but let's see why. Oh, we have a fun setup in 8. That is fun. Yeah, because A5, 9, 5 for 7, and 7, A7, 4 for 5. Yeah, so that one's, I guess, a bit more complicated, but all these moves are so dangerous. Part of it's because they've used up a lot of their up power, but a lot of it is just, if we have a card that is safe or pseudo-safe in a square, and even when they correctly, and this is usually the save, really important to know as the first turn player, like, this is the move that is most likely to get you a tie. We just have so many threatening things to do in 5, and we're going to be up 6-4. If we don't give them combos, we're usually ahead, and we're usually close to winning. Oh, a few trickier lines here, just because I thought it was worth exploring some trickier ones. In this one, 6-9-A4 is actually a mistake. A5, 9, 5 wins here. You know, there's no play in 4 because there's the combo back in 7. And in this one, if you go here, you have conceded. You just still have very little to do. This is a loss. Yeah. So there's some lines where the move in 3 is not best. In fact, the only tie here is to walk into just so much scary stuff. But this one, you do survive this kind of line because there's no same in 3, and if there was, it wouldn't combo extra cards either. So there is a way to hold that. Occasionally it's not grabbing safety, but safety is so much more likely to be the move than anything else. Another time when it didn't work was in this line. It turns out the move in 5 in this one happens to be good enough, but it's so hard to evaluate from a distance which positions this move in 5 is going to be good. So I think fundamentally the lesson is, like, when you face this, grab safety and get ready to put something they have no combo play against in 5. And from the first turn player perspective, this is just really scary. It just means you play a side with a weak number facing towards 5, and if they have safety in 1 or 3, you're going to have this incredibly uncomfortable position, because if they can drop anything in 5 you can't touch well, you're just so far behind. So there's some miracle lines, but, you know, if we ask what's the best move that's not next to, this turns out to be the best move in 5. Everything in 5 is good, but nowhere near as strong as the next 2 moves. All moves in 4 or 6 can just be met by Cypher in either 1 or 3. Like anything here, Cypher here is at least going to tie. Anything here, Cypher here is at least going to tie. So a bunch of moves lose against those lines, but they're not actually very threatening in practice, because that's a pretty obvious thing to do. For corner moves, far corner moves, this is really strong. This is actually a tie, even though it walks into the combo, but that is very scary to play. I don't think anyone's doing that. This seems a pretty logical tie to me, massively setting up a dia, right? And so this one seems pretty findable and doable. The most insane tie here, and I should probably explore this at some point because this is wild. There are only 3 ties here, right? There's this one that just would take incredible nerves. There's this one, which I think is the one most of us would in fact find. And then there's this one? Very strange. Okay. If you want to pause there and think about figuring out how this works, go for it. Maybe you'll learn something. My suspicion is you'll calculate very specific stuff that's kind of strange and weird and not learn much about Triple Triad as a whole. So maybe I'll do that at some point, but not right now. Yeah. So there are other good moves, this being the best of them, but the next 2 plays are so deadly. And even the lines, you know, there's these there's 3, and there turns out to be a miracle save. Every card in 5 gives them different challenges. And imagine trying to be confident in this from a distance. First turn just can't play like this. So to jump into another one, what would we predict here? We'd predict, okay, we want to play in 7 or 9, and we want it to be safe, so that actually rules out 7, because a 10 up is capturable by Adia and lower numbers are capturable by Irvine. So we're probably looking at 9. And we'd like to keep a card that we could stick in 5 that they don't have combo play against. But as we've seen, most of our cards they don't have combo play against. So A873 or A595. If A873 was our only card that could land in 5 they have minimal combo play against, I would keep that. But we have so many other options. And in general, better to use A873 before A595. This just picks up some sideways 10s as the board fills up. So I think this is the appealing move, and it in fact is a win. There's a miracle save here, but in practice this is going to win too, because this move is just not getting played. So both are just very strong replies. And again, these are weak starters, you know. They grab safety, say Squall, and I assume the win is just something in 5. In fact, it says there are 2 wins here. One of them is this, so okay, we'll ignore that one for now. Not that 1 is impossible to find here, but much more thematic is, you know, a card in 5. And it turns out this is winning. We have a big threat in 4. We have a nice Sane in 6 as well. Very nice position. We do walk into potential huge combos to this, but we combo back so hard, and they don't have a place to set up a second combo. So, okay. That's a pretty terrible move here. What would we expect? Well, we're immediately drawn to this card. It's not safe in 3, so we go 9. And it turns out there are some ties here. Again, it's all kind of miraculous and very close to losing. This is just immediately massive pressure. This one, all right, immediately drawn to 7A, 7, 4, and 1. Now in this one, it turns out the solver just loves this move here. But obviously our move is 7A, 7, 4, and 1. And again, they have a miracle tie, you know. And in practice, you know, this is the best move. The question is, do we have something good to put in 5? This is our best card to put in 5. And to tie, they must find exactly this move. Anything else loses. Not easy. So again, what we're seeing is, and these are just a million examples of the same thing, but you're seeing just over and over, a card, a side starter with a weak number facing towards 5, where we can grab safety next to it, even if they can grab safety in the other square, is just so often going to be, we have something to put in 5. And I think the most important thing this tells us is both that when you've got these cards, these 3 cards in like 1, 2, and 3, both that 5 is just a really powerful square, if not vulnerable to combos. But more importantly, like, a side starter is really vulnerable. And the most important thing, you can play side starters with weak numbers facing 5, but you really have to control the adjoining squares. And I'll talk more about that later. But it means actually, I think one of the best places for side starters, a really inspiring game, I mentioned this before, is the Delial Chickeny game from Clan League, where it was a very split level set, and Delial was dominant going up, right? His power going up beat all of Chickeny's power going down. And so he starts in 2, and Chickeny has no safety in 1 and 3. So because of that, it's okay that the card Deli stuck in 2 was a low-level card with a relatively weak number facing towards 5. Because if Chickeny can't go in 1 of 1 or 3, forcing Deli to go in the other and then go in 5, then it's okay at his low power facing down. The real problem of this all starts, and all is really brutal, when the opponent can go next to it in one of these squares. So this one, unsurprisingly, this is a great move. You know. And it turns out this time this one does manage to tie, but again, it's all dangerous and it's just barely. So really, like, if you're looking to play side starters with weak numbers facing towards 5, make sure you control the neighboring squares. And I think that has the best chance of happening in split level sets, where I think this is actually quite a powerful starter idea, but we can see it's pretty terrible here. What would we expect? Well, 953A is safe in 3 or 9. Looks pretty good in either square. In 9, this is somehow a miracle tie. More practically, this does manage to tie, but you have to be incredibly precise. For instance, after this move, you must find this as the only tie. After this move, you must find this as the only tie. And after this move, you must find this as the only tie. So this is just a nightmare to defend, right? Just a horrible position. Even better is 9-5, 3A, and 3 when the only tie is this move, which is, you know, in practice, this game is getting saved like 2% of the time, you know. So again, pretty easy remedy to this type of starter. 2, 6, 9, A, and 4. You'll never guess it. I mean, this is the best move, but actually, this is the best, I think, of these weird sides. Or this is one of the best of these weird sides. And actually, this one is not so bad. You know, 7A, 7, 4, and 1, we're not going to lose, but after they play a Dia in 7, this is actually a much easier defense than all the others we've seen. Another somewhat better one is Squall here. In general, it seems that playing in 4 lines up so comfortably with the Dia ready to recapture both ways that this is the best way to do it. And this does suggest that hands with kind of a rare like Vivi or a Dia, or hands with maybe like Rhinoa functioning as a recapture on a side starter, which they do pretty well because they can either overpower or they can potentially same wall or plus wall both ways pretty nicely with 10s facing out consistently. Is actually not so bad an idea. And again, this one's better. I thought a really cool line was 7, 8, 6, setting up the big threat in 9. And then if they block 9, the winning move, or one winning move, is here. I thought this was a fun line. Because either we get a combo in 5. We've now set up, well, fundamentally, they can't, if they play something like this, then we're just up 6-4 and Cypher has no captures. And if they play something like this, they flip 6, so now this combos everything. And if they play either card in 5, they flip 6, so now this combos everything. And if they go somewhere like here, they flip 4, but and just walk into being down too much. They don't capture enough. I just thought this was a fun position. That was neat. This is a nice move in 7 because this move loses here, unsurprisingly, to something in 5. You know, again, these are just so dangerous even when you have safety. This does tie here, though, which makes sense. And this move ended up being good. Obviously, like, this is tempting, but this is the first time where they haven't given us safety, right? Because this is covered, and this, because it plus walls, is not safe either. So this is the first time we actually don't have safety, which is why I was looking at moves like this. I think this one might be best. This is not obvious at all, but apparently this move wins, which is cool. Setting up a cool same in 5. And yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of giving solver lines, but you get the idea of what we're aiming to do against these starter types. And we'll go through the FFTactics examples. Gotta switch the hands. So first turn is now going to be FFTactics, but it's going to be the same principles. It's going to be the same stuff. When we see these weak sides, if we have a safe corner to do, it's just so dangerous for them to deal with. And our possibility of going in 5 after is just very powerful. So hopefully it has switched properly. Looks like it has. And 953A in 4. Turns out this is losing. Multiple things in 7. Anything safe in 7. We've given up our 10 facing that direction. Both of these are winning. This is straightforward. Concedes too much left. 7A, 7, 4, and 8. You know, either 9 or 7 looks pretty decent. There's some weird wins here. Apparently, okay. So this move's very strong, predictably. Okay, yeah. So if here, then again, something in 5 is devastating. If here, something in 5 is devastating. These are wins. The only tie is here. Oh, no, that's one tie. The other is here. Okay, whatever. Point is, this is clearly just incredibly dangerous, and we would expect it to be so. 7A, 7, 4, and 6. We have lots of safe moves in 3 or 9. We could go through them. It turns out this one seems to be the best of it. One reason it would be is because AA33 controls 3. We would expect 9 to be better than 3, because it's hard for FFTactics to just play something safe here. But everything in 3 or 9 is really good for FF8 against this move. 7A, 7, 4, and 2. You know, what would you expect? One of these to be safe? Yeah. This one's better because, again, we control 3. This is incredibly dangerous for them. This one, we don't control squares that well. We have 110 to the right. You know, this walks into combos. This is the move you'd expect. This is the best move. What else we got? Here, what do we expect? Well, we have multiple cards with 10s to the left. In general, we'd rather play 9 than 3 because we control 3. It turns out this move is apparently the best, but 9 is also really good, and it's not much of a difference. Here, we've seen this before, or something similar. This is the best move. This one, we have a bunch of 10s up. All of them turn out to be about equally good. Everything in 7 or 9 is just really powerful. 8, 7, 3, and 6. Weirdly, this one works out basically okay. So you could look at my examples of like 2, 6, 9A, and 4 for FF8 or A8, 7, 3, and 6 and try to figure out what makes these ones kind of okay rather than the terrible of the rest of these. But I think like it's still not a very, like, you're not going to win too many games doing this, and you're still going to lose a fair few. So, yeah. Anyways, against this one, maybe you should just go 7, because the big setup card for 5 has been taken out of FFTactics' hand. But, you know, this position's playable. What else we got? 9, 5, 3A, and 2. Now here, this would be a really bad answer, because there's the big setup still, right? So you'd lose the game. But, you know, stick Cypher 1 or 3 and you're still ahead. What else? 8, 7, 3, and 2. That one turns out to be kind of okay as well. So if you're trying to figure out what makes ones of these okay, I guess that one. And this one will blow your mind. This move's best. So I think like the lesson here is if you have safety next to a weak out facing side, take it. And you're not even aiming for the L. The L is a backup plan. The L will get you at least a tie. But you're really looking to just play in 5, right? Something in 5 that they can't play against is so likely to either win or be really close to a win. 5 is kind of the secret to these positions. And then I wanted to sort of summarize the things we've covered so far. And I think there's a way of kind of talking through the different starter types we've looked at. And I sort of started with the questions of what are my captures, what are their recaptures, and do I have safety? So the do I have safety question comes up with these side starters, right? Those create squares that only have one out-facing direction. It is much easier to have safety. It's kind of a clue to look for safety whenever there's squares with only one out-facing side. But I thought the best way to sum up what we've looked at is the rule of evens. So if you look at positions where, like, say here, we have one attack on something. In these positions, now we haven't actually looked at this one yet, but we will. The choice is either to take, maybe we did look at this one, but it's either to take and just kind of remove it, which is saying we have so this is, I'm saying this so badly. I should stop recording these late at night, but we're on the rule of evens. We're kind of looking to attack something either 2 or 0 ways. So something like this, we attack one way, right? And we're looking to either make that 2 or make it 0. So one thing we could do, we don't really have ways to set up against it, but like one way we could do is something like this, right? And now Adia has both 6 and 8. Adia is doing great. We have gone from 1 to covering it both ways. And the other is to take it immediately and go from having one way to attack it to none. And this has pretty consistently been kind of the indicator. If we think, I should, it's a pain to switch back, but if we think about like a starter like Squall in 7, right? The best moves were either to take from 8, set up in 5, or set up in 1 against the strong side. And that very much follows this, right? We're either taking an 8, we're going from one way to attack it to 0, or we're going from one way to attack it to 2 by setting up in either 1 or in 5. And the weak side starters kind of fit this too, right? When we see one of these weak side starters, it has 3 weak sides, right? It has 3 sides we can attack. And we're trying to turn that into an even number. We're trying to make that 2. So we go safely next to it, and suddenly it has 2 sides to attack. It really lines up really well with kind of wanting to be able to hit something an even number of ways, be that 0 or 2. And so far against every starter type we've seen, that has been the desirable outcome of our reply. And these have been small samples and against really bad starters, but I think it's an interesting way of categorizing what you want to achieve against a starter. And it's, I think, quite consistent with, we've now gone through, now that we've done so many of these bad side starters, we've gone through over 40 starters. So we're almost halfway through the starters. And I think every single one of them could basically be summed up by this. Every starter we've seen, every kind of move we've considered, and these are weird moves. Like, we look at something like this, okay, this is a weird, bad move. But all of these moves, or let's stick with sides for a moment, I think could be summarized this way. More of the weird starters we've seen have been FF8 starting, so I'm kind of confused now that I'm locked into FFTactics starting and I don't feel like switching the viewpoint again. But I think this rule of evens is one worth thinking about. And I've described a rule of evens before, and this is kind of a different one. But in terms of dealing with a starter, if you can take it one way, you either want to set up to have both ways, or you want to just remove it from the board by taking it immediately. And when there's kind of one of these weird side starters where you can hit it 3 ways, try to go down to 2. Try to make everything fit into this even numbered paradigm. And I think that lines up really well with, at least what we've seen so far, what the best moves have been.